to She Leads with Carly. Our guest today is the amazing Shelley Zalis. Shelley is the founder of the Female Quotient, an incredible business that is all about advancing equality in the workplace through the power of collaboration. It has over hundreds of thousands of followers worldwide, and while you will hear more about the process of founding the Female Quotient, you will hear all about the incredible lessons that Shelley learned throughout her career. Whether it was from a terrible first job review she received, or a lesson from incredible mentors of hers, or even from a spontaneous plane ride buddy in Tony Robbins. An amazing story from truly an incredible leader who really epitomizes what this show is all about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I love doing it. Hello, Shelley. Thank you so much for coming on to She Leads today. I'm so happy to be here with you. How are you doing? How is everything?
Well, I'm so happy to be with you. Your energy already is infectious. I can already feel this reverberation through Zoom.
Yes.
So you're leading already.
Of course. Well, it's very easy for me to be like this when I'm talking to an incredible woman like you. So, Shelley, you are the founder and CEO of the Female Quotient, a female-owned business advancing equality in the workplace through the power of collaboration, and you're bringing visibility to women, activating solutions for change, and creating metrics for accountability. So before we even get into the Female Quotient, which is incredible in itself, you were actually in the market research industry, you started your own company, and really were at the forefront of online advertising, which, today seems so simple, a simple concept, but you were at the forefront of creating it. And then from that, becoming the CEO of Ipsos. Is that the correct way of pronouncing it?
Ipsos. And I ran Ipsos's innovation business.
Exactly. So Shelley, before we even get into Female Quotient, I want to know, take me back to Barnard College. Like, you were in college. At this point, how are you imagining your career? What questions were you asking yourself?
You might find this really hard to believe, but I really was not asking myself those questions in college. I really, as a California girl, I loved living in New York. I loved meeting really interesting people. I actually took all of my classes across the street at Columbia.
Okay.
At the time, it was Barnard College for Women, Columbia College for Men of Columbia University.
Yeah.
And you were allowed to take classes at Columbia or Barnard, whatever you wanted. So I lived on Columbia campus. I took my courses at Columbia, and I didn't really even understand the power of being in an all-girls school at Barnard at the time.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was interested in psychology, so I studied psychology and, really what makes people tick or behave the way they do.
Yeah.
I just was fascinated by that, but I wasn't really thinking about a career, to be perfectly honest, when I was at Barnard. I'm turning 59, so it was a really long time ago. And what I loved about my experience at college was meeting people from all parts of the world. And one day I would walk in the dorm and hear a student playing this, Mozart, and just filling the hall up with this music and thinking, oh my God. And I had girlfriends that were learning, computers on mainframe, huge computing systems where paper, there was dots and dashes and papers would come out. And I'm like, wow, what brilliant women they are. But I never processed it, to be honest. And, I always thought that once I got married and had a family, I was going to be a full-time mom. So I just thought I was going to have a job to pay the rent, but I really never thought about a career. And it was, I know, hard to believe. And then I remember when I was a senior in college, I thought, I should get a part-time job because I had plenty of time on my hands. And so I went to the career board at school and I saw this position available. And I thought it was for working in an ad agency.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, that's so exciting. And so I put on a suit and stockings. We called them stockings at the time. We used to wear them. And I went on the subway to go to this job interview. And I remember my purse falling off my shoulder. I was really nervous. Who carries purses? You carry backpack. It fell into the subway thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And so, of course, I bend down to get it in between trains. And I took the thing that you pull the newsstand down and swooped up my bag. And now I'm all disheveled and my hose are ripped. And I go to this interview all kind of anxious. And I walk into this little brownstone, and there are 3 women sitting around eating ice cream, frozen yogurt, and talking about celebrities and kind of, yakking about everything interesting. And I'm like, I could do this. This is a great job. I'll take it. I don't even know if I'm offered this internship, but I'll take it. And as it turns out, it was a market research company. It was not an ad agency. It was a research company. I never in a million years thought I'd be in market research, especially since I got a D in statistics. Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning of truly my journey in the career world. And I really learned so much. I ended up staying at this company called Video Storyboards, 212-689-0207. I actually remember the phone number. I loved every minute of it. I stayed there about 8 years probably and learned so much from the CEO, Dave Vadera, who is from India, brilliant man that just believed in being. Didn't try to be fancy, didn't try to do anything so crazy. He just had this amazing business, and 3 women, I became the 4th, and Dave Vadera. We built a great pre-testing business, all around storyboards. And that's when I started really understanding, who I was, what I loved, what I wanted to be doing. And I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I found this job that inspired me to be my best self.
Amazing. So at this moment, this is where you really realize, okay, there is a career for me. Like, I want to pursue some type of career rather than, the stay-at-home mom, or you realize you could do both. So there's something that I read that I'm pretty sure this CEO told you, but he said to you, there's no such thing as you either do it or you don't. There's no such thing as trying. So tell me a bit about that lesson that you learned and kind of how you use it today, like what that means.
So from Dave Vadera, he was such an important mentor to me because, he wore brown corduroy jeans, wallabies, which you don't even know what those are because it was so long ago, red socks, which I think were his like lucky socks. Yeah. Red, I'm sure he had a number of pairs, but like red socks. And just, I used to sit at a typewriter and write reports. He had a brilliant idea jar in the office. And whenever someone would have an idea, we would put it in the brilliant idea jar. And then once a week, we'd sit around and, we worked until who knows what time that, I was 21. I think I was there from like 20 years old to 26 years old or something. Yeah. We used to sit around and pull the ideas out, drinking wine and just moving forward. And so he really taught me about believing in myself. And, the best way to develop business was having great relationships. He had great relationships with all of his clients, and we would sit around a table and talk. So he taught me to just believe in yourself and don't let the small things bother you. Every idea is a great idea, and collaborating and sharing. It wasn't just about the hierarchical that he was the boss and he was always right. We all iterated together. Yeah. My second boss, Jerry Lukeman, taught me about there's no such thing as trying. Okay. And he was another instrumental role model for me that taught me that family always comes first. He was divorced but so connected still to his ex-wife. She was his best friend. His kids were his lifeblood. And on the wall in his office, he had collages of all of his children and his grandchildren. And the wall would keep expanding, and he would talk about his family and the importance of his family. And he would wear this sweeping cape. He was this drama person. He passed 2 years ago, and it was a really sad for me, yet happy for me, because he taught me so many life lessons. And I remember when he was in the hospital, he asked to see me, and I went, and I started telling him all the things that he taught me, all the stories of how important he was and how instrumental he was in who I am today as a CEO. and that I will never forget his life lessons.
Incredible. Amazing.
One day I was in his office on his sofa and we were chatting, and I said, all right, I am going to try to do this. And he looked at me and he reminded me a lot of my father, because my father would have said the same thing. He said, try. He said, there is no such thing as trying. He said, you see this pen? And he threw it on the ground and he said, try to pick it up. And so I did what anyone would, and I tried oh, it's so heavy, tried to lift it. And he goes, you either pick it up or you don't.
Yeah.
And he said, never tell me you're going to try. He said, you're either going to do something or not. He says, but I can tell you, Shelley, when you put your mind to something, there is no turning back. He said, there is always a solution. You just have to find the yes.
Wow.
And he said, and sometimes you might not be able to lift it, but that means you tried something that you didn't do before. And that just means it's not failure. He says, it's not a mistake. It's not something to be upset about. He says, just, you might have to zig when others zag, but there's always a way. And he really, that is something that I will never forget for the rest of my life. A life lesson that was so important to me. And then I met another person that inspired me, and he didn't even know that he did. This was maybe 30 years ago. I met Tony Robbins on an airplane.
Wow.
I was going from Cincinnati. I was at Procter & Gamble back to LA or wherever I was. And sitting next to me was this enormous person, bigger than life in every way. Yeah. I did not really know who he was. And he was just taking up my space. We were in coach and he's big, little. And the seat thing was up and he was his presence physically and spiritually and brain power wise, he just takes up a lot of space. And I remember being not in a great mood, and he's like, and our plane got stuck, so we were delayed. We were together for 10 hours on the plane. And he said, oh, did you have a good day? I said, no. And I said, not really. He said, what happened? I said, why is it that Fortune 500 corporations are so unwilling to try new things, to experiment and to open their minds, and they're also set in their ways? I said, I have this idea to pioneer online research, and I brought it, and everyone looks at why not versus why yes. And he said, you know why? And I've never forgotten this. He said, most people make a problem so big that you can't untangle it. He said, you've got to turn problems into steps so that you're continuously pushing forward with progress. And if something doesn't work, you don't go backwards, you just skip over it and, figure out how to make it work. Yeah. And he gave me this example that I also will never forget, which is, he said, imagine you're in a 100-story building. Okay. If you're at the bottom floor and you want to go to 100, you push 100 on the elevator, you shoot your way up. Mm-hmm. But if the elevator's broken, you have to take the steps. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And if you get to the 20th step and there's red tape, what are you going to do? Go back or find a way to get over it? He said, and that's how you have to take problems. Break them into steps, into bites, bits and bites. And then one day you're going to get to the 100th one, you're going to look back and say, wow, look how far I've come. And he said, that's how you need to take on problems, because there's always a solution. Just don't make it too big that it scares you. Make it a manageable step that you can handle. And so, so many life lessons that, and those were positives. And then I had some negative ones that, people told me certain things that wanted me to lead in a legacy way. And, it's how I got my nickname Chief Troublemaker. I ended up creating the uncorporate rules because I wanted to thrive in the workplace. I wanted to rise to leadership. I wanted to be right and not always have to follow someone else's lead if I didn't feel it was going to work for me. Yeah. And so, those have also been, I don't know how long this show is, but those are also life lessons that, were heartbeat moments for me. And I talk a lot about heartbeat moments, that a lot of people follow their head. That's the textbook. That's the cognitive. But when you follow your heart, boom, 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 you got to follow your heart. And that's where follow your heart comes. It's following your purpose and passion and creating the rules or the pathway that allows you to bring your best self, your true self, your whole self, your authentic self to the table so that you can thrive and stay in the workplace and not fall out in middle management, or what I call messy middle, which so many women do, because the rules of the workplace historically are not the rules of the workplace that we should be reinforcing and celebrating today.
Yeah. Oh, Shelley, I love it. I could listen to you for hours. I love the lessons you've learned. So tell me, when was that moment for you where you realized, you know what, I have to step away from this. I have to go against the rules, and I actually have to create something for women, create this equality, because there is such a big gap. When did that happen for you?
Very specific 2 moments.
Okay.
One was my first review as an employee, not David Era. We sat around and always talked about what to do and not to do. But when I was at ASI, my first review from my boss, and all my bosses were men, it was on a typewriter, 6 typewritten pages, teeny, itty bitty. I still have the review today because it impacted me so much. 3 lines of nicety, I'm kind, I'm smart, I'm collaborative. And then the rest ripped me to shreds. I spend too much time with clients. I push, the team too hard out of their comfort zone. I think everything needs to happen immediately, all kinds of things that really, I remember thinking to myself, God, is that right? Like, our relationship's not important in business. Am I supposed to be an order taker and just sit at the desk? And so, I thought, okay, well, I'm supposed to agree because he's my boss. But instead of agreeing, because my heart told me that's just not who I am, and I don't want to be that person that he's telling me to be, I looked at him and I said, wow, you are so wrong. And one day you are going to realize that relationships are the most important aspect of business. I'm 26 years old or something at this time, 27, young. And I needed my job. And he ended up putting this woman above me for me to report to. And I remember saying, why are you doing that? He said, because this is a research company and she's a researcher. And, I was a relationship person. And that was the first thing that always disturbed me, that I knew that what he was saying, even if it was right, was not, I wouldn't want to be in business if that is how it was. Right. And then the second was really what catapulted me into leaving the corporate world and starting my own company. I had this idea to pioneer online research, but it was in a day and age when only wealthy men with broadband were on the internet. Mm-hmm. So I went to my boss, my boss's boss, my boss's boss, my boss, and I said, let's migrate research from, telephone and central location to the internet. And they all told me that it wasn't the right time because it was too premature. It wasn't a representative population. ASI was just acquired by Ipsos. And so, we were going to go from a domestic business to an international business, and we needed to focus our priorities on that. Well, the next week I was on a panel with Larry Mock, who was the chief research officer of Procter & Gamble, the largest advertiser in the world. Yeah. And my bosses were all in the front row, and I'm whispering to Larry. And I come off the stage, and my boss is like, oh my God, what were you talking to him about? And Procter was currently not a partner of ASI at the time. I said, I just asked him, when is the right time to come and talk to you about migrating research from offline to online? And my boss said, well, what did he say? I said, next week. So we have a meeting. And so my bosses all said, great. Paul will go, John will go, Ringo will go, and Star will go. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what about Shelley? Now, this is over 30-something years ago. And they said, Shelley, it's a boys' club, and this is the right group to go. I said, well, if I'm not going, I will cancel the meeting, and you can all wait for the right time.
Wow. I love that. Oh, amazing.
And so, of course, we ended up, Procter became a big partner and, whatever. And I left to start my own company because, Ipsos really wasn't ready to move into the online world. And I knew that if I was the first to come up with this idea of online research and the last to be in the game, I would be very angry with myself. And that's when I created this motto in my mind, which always said I need to be the first, the second, and the third. The first is the innovator. They usually make the mistakes and fail because there's no ecosystem, there's no money, no one wants to join you.
Yeah.
The second is the copycat, but they don't know what's under the hood. The third is the sweeper. They come in on the shiny white horse, and now people are already ready to go, and you pick up where you left off, and you get all the funding, and you win. Mm-hmm. So I always said I need to be the first, the second, and third because no one's going to beat me at my own game. And lo and behold, I am the mother of online research. I was the first in the world to pioneer it and build a quite successful company as a result, and I sold it, which is crazy. God, how long ago now? I would say 10 years ago. It's been 10 years ago. I sold it to Ipsos, which acquired ASI when I was there and had the idea to pioneer online research. So life is so full circle. It's pretty darn crazy. But that was the moment I realized it was time to be right and not just listen to what, legacy, defined, but to create what I believed was something that excited and delighted me. I was passionate about, and I was willing to go all in on, even though no one believed that I was right or no one believed that it was the right time. But I did, my husband did, and my father did at the time. That's all I needed.
So, Shelley, okay, before we go on to now Female Quotient, I have to ask, you first they told you, this person, they're going to go, and you get the bad review. Like, any normal person, or, it's the normal reaction is to be like, okay, yeah, like you go, or, thanks for the review, I'll work on it, or, so what lessons, what advice would you give some females, who are experiencing that, who say, maybe they're at the forefront of creating that meeting, but they're not invited to the meeting? What should they say? Because like you said, it's not right. It doesn't make any sense, but you have that confidence, that drive to say, to stand up for yourself. How can you give that to others? What can they do?
Well, for me, it really was following your heart. And when you follow your heart, you can't really goof because it means you're following your purpose and your passion.
Yeah.
And there was no choice. Actually, my boss that gave me that review, I'm still really good friends with him. Mm-hmm. And I called him recently because I was being interviewed in Worth magazine, and they did a big story. And I called him and I said, do you ever regret the review you gave me? Because, you really hurt me. Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel bad about that? And he goes, no. And I said, why? He said, look at where you are today.
Yeah.
He said, you internalized the message, you disagreed with it, and you started, and this is so appropriate for She Leads, you started leading your way.
Amazing.
You didn't look for permission. You didn't apologize. You just took the baton, ran with it, right or wrong, and look what you've created. And he said, so I do not feel bad, because had I not have done that to you, you might not have that same persistence, resilience, conviction to keep going. And so my advice is follow your heart, believe in yourself. We all have that imposter syndrome, that voice in our head, which by the way, men and women have that voice in their head. Yeah. Men just ignore it. Women let the voice get louder and amplify it. Wow. One of the things that, you've got to get really good at, even if you're not comfortable, you got to shut that voice up in your head. Just shut it up, close it. And even if you think you're not good enough, you're not qualified, because no one feels they're good enough and qualified. You just got to dismiss that and go. And, for me, I have been uncomfortable so many times, but I got comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's just what I expect of myself today, and so I just say, believe in yourself, know your value, know your worth, and stand up, stand out, but most importantly, stand together. And so whenever I've had very scary moments, even, and we could go into how the Female Quotient started, but I've also brought other people with me. When I got invited to the World Economic Forum with our Equality Lounge, I was told, we want you to come, but you might not feel welcome. So once again, I'm in this situation where, it would have been much easier for me to not go, to not put myself in a scary, uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
But I've learned for myself of what it takes. I called 4 girlfriends and I said, will you go with me to the World Economic Forum? We might not feel welcome there, but of course they came. And it was that moment again where, today, 6 years later at the World Economic Forum, we are the destination for equality at the World Economic Forum. We bring now 50 women. We've changed the equation because sometimes perception is reality. Like we think we shouldn't do this, or we think we're not supposed to do this.
Yep.
Really? Like how many times have women said, oh, they sneak out of the office to go to their kid's soccer game? Well, is that written in an employee handbook that says miss the important moments in your life?
Right.
No, you just tend to look around you and no one is leaving or everyone is sneaking out. So you do the same thing versus walking out proudly. That might become the new norm.
Yeah.
Right. And so to flip the script, flip the balance, close chapters that make no sense, open new ones takes courage, but it's actually not that scary. We make it scarier in our heads, but it's actually not that complicated.
You're so right. Yeah. So, okay, incredible, Shelley. I love it. So tell me quickly now, tell me about the Female Quotient, what you guys are doing, the incredible mission behind it, and everything about that.
So I started this company about 6.5 years ago. The Female Quotient, the name, very easy. First came IQ, the intelligence quotient, then came EQ, the emotional quotient. Now comes FQ, the female quotient.
I love it.
When you add more women to any equation, there's a return on equality. And so, that's just the truth. And, what we are all about is advancing women and bringing visibility to women, doing remarkable things across every industry. Women have historically been written out or forgotten in history. Not going to happen, in my day and age, while I am still, capable of giving back with generosity what I wish I had. And also advancing equality in the workplace and closing the gaps, parity policy pipeline and people gaps. And so we do that in 3 core ways. One is community. So we've built the largest global community of women in the workplace. We have over 50,000 women, but we also have community of conscious leaders. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, gender equality is not a female issue. It's a social and economic issue. And if we truly want to unite on equality, we have to work together, sharing the good, bad, and the ugly. Because historically, we've all been doing the same thing separately, which is, forcing us to go backwards. Yeah. So we build community through pop-up lounges, equality lounges at big industry conferences. Pre-COVID, we were doing about 70, from CES in technology to the World Economic Forum World Leaders, MBA All-Star in between, Oracle, Dreamforce, Cannes Lions, Sundance, across the board. Since COVID, we've held over 500 conversations with over 1,400 speakers, so that we ensure that the equality conversation isn't just a conversation, but it leads to solutions for change. In the past 3 months, we launched FQ Global PAC, which is a dinner party uniting the world through the power of women in over 100 countries. And it is a pay it forward with generosity where no woman will ever be left behind. So if there's no seat at the table, you pull up a seat and you invite everyone to join. And we all have networks. Everyone should feel included. No one should ever be lonely and by themselves. Women that support other women, we say, deserve a place in heaven. Oh. Madeleine Albright says women that don't support other women deserve a place in hell. We also are building something called The Vault, which will be a talent agency meets speaker bureau meets match.com, a place that all women can come get to know one another and get matched for advice and get matched for speaking and whatever that is. The second piece of our business is measurement and accountability. Yeah. It is very important. You can't treasure what you can't measure. So we help companies become equality fit in closing the pay gap, in ensuring that the pipeline is not just filled with diversity, but we create that pathway to leadership. from the policies, ensuring that the benefits and policies within the workplace create a culture of safety, belonging, where everyone can thrive regardless of life stage. So life stage accommodation.
Yeah.
And then truly people upskilling, what do you need to learn more about so you feel comfortable, truly starting where you started, ending up, at the top. Because as we know, we started about 50-50. We ended less than 17% in the C-suite. We fall off in middle management, which we call the messy middle.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is impact, doing good and doing well. And so, with all these women in different countries and looking at Global Goal 5, gender equality, ensuring that we can close the impact gaps based on immediate need. So really acts of goodness that will go a long way to propelling women to feel empowered to make a difference in their communities.
Yeah.
Because the best solutions come from the women within the communities that understand what their real needs and priorities are, and helping to close those gaps. So that's what we do.
Amazing. Yeah, casual. That's what we do. No, it's incredible.
But you know what, Carly? She leads, and your generation. So we have a whole next gen business, because it's for us, you're not the next generation, you're the now generation.
Yeah.
And so what I want to say to your audience is, I want all of you to know that you are leaders. Leadership is not about age. Leadership is not about title. Leadership is about action. And we all have the power to activate the solutions and the changes that we wish for in the workplace. Because if corporations want to attract and retain the best talent, we need to accommodate around each and every one of us to ensure that we get people like you in leadership positions, because you're owning it every single day.
Oh, I love it. Well, I just think what you're doing is so incredible. And it's what you said, it's not just talking about it, but it's actually doing it. It's giving the tools to actually make a change and making yourself accountable, making the companies accountable. It's incredible. Okay, Shelley, as a last question, I have to ask. So what I do on every episode is tell me a weird or fun hidden talent. So no one really knows that you can do this. So I'm going to go first, okay? And so what I do is I throw blueberries in my mouth, all right? So here's a blueberry, and let's see how this goes. Okay. There we go.
Wow.
Thank you.
I wonder if I can throw the blueberry and you can catch it.
We'll try that next time, maybe.
Well, I don't have a talent like that. What is my talent? Oh, that's a really interesting. Okay, I think my talent is glass can break on me and I'm never affected by it.
I'm scared to ask how you know this so well, but is it really
Well, it's really true. Glass shatters on me all the time and nothing ever happens. So a window fell on me in a hotel room, a 250-pound window with metal frames.
Oh, my goodness.
A triple thick window. I was standing in the room. I opened it. The window blew off the whole wall, off the hinges, off the wall, hit me in the head. I was underneath it, had a concussion, but nothing happened to me. I had a hole in my head that needed to get stitched, but not a broken bone.
Oh, my goodness.
So that was the first moment that I noticed. The second is a big, huge piece of glass shattered all over everywhere except on me. Didn't touch me. And then all the time, a wine glass will break in my hand. The red wine will end up all over me. The glass will be in my hand, but nothing has ever happened.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I think you're just defensible. You have these defenses, which is amazing. Okay, Shelley, just want to say again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've loved it, and just the lessons you've taught and the energy you have is incredible. So thank you again.
Well, I am just so inspired by you, and I've learned so much from you too. So I can't wait to take She Leads forward and get you a lot of my girlfriends in business to come and speak with you as well. So just kudos to you. Keep going. You are a badass.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.